Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third and final Plugged into Energy Research Lecture Series lecture of the year, entitled Power for All, Tackling Energy Inequity Through Community Collaboration. We're really excited for our three panelists tonight who are going to talk to us about what's happening now in the realm of energy efficiency and what we can be excited for in the future. So to start, my name's Kevin Drum. I am the coordinator of the Energy Literacy Initiative here at the URI Cooperative Extension. The URI is a land grant institution, and so beyond the education, the teaching at the university for students, and the research that we do here at URI, the third part of our mission is to bring this research out to the community, bringing science-based resources to Rhode Islanders, and we've been around since 1914 doing this work. We, not me, but the Cooperative Extension. And so the hope for the Cooperative Extension is that we will improve the quality of lives, livelihoods, and health, and the natural environment here in Rhode Island. We believe in social and environmental justice, and we really strive to deepen our cultural understanding and proficiency while we're engaging with the community. You see here that one of these, our focus areas is energy, but we also work in other areas: land stewardship, food systems and agriculture, water resources, and healthy lifestyles. Before we get into things, I just want to thank some organizations that have helped make this event possible in this series. So first, the Energy Efficiency Council, which funds the Plugged into Energy Research Lecture Series, and they work with us as we're thinking about how we what these lectures will look like each year. And then I'd also like to thank RISE, the RISE group, or RISE Engineering, who supports our work at the Cooperative Extension, the work that we do regarding energy literacy. So I'd like to note the session is being live streamed and recorded, so if you can refrain from yelling, that'd be great. For those of you listening online, I'm sorry, the panelists are allowed to yell in the audience, if you can refrain, thank you. If you'd like to watch back later and review any of the information or tune in at another point, you can check out our URI Cooperative Extension YouTube channel, where we also have a number of past lectures recorded as well. And all of these lectures or webinars are closed captioned, so you can get the closed captioning in English or other languages if you'd like to share it with anyone else. For those of you watching online, if you'd like to ask a question of the panelists or share a comment, you can do so by scanning this QR code or going to this URL. It's also below in the description of the YouTube video. So before we start, I want to get into just give an overview about energy efficiency, which is the topic of this lecture. So what is energy efficiency? Energy efficiency is basically using less energy to have the same output. So that, if you look on your right there, energy efficiency, some people get confused with energy efficiency and energy conservation. Energy conservation is changing your habits to use less energy. So this might look like changing the temperature on your fridge, make the temperature a little higher, and so your food is not quite as cold, but it's cold enough, and you use a little less energy. Energy efficiency, on the other hand, would be switching out your fridge to a more efficient fridge, and it will always use less energy and keep your food at the same temperature that you had it at before. So energy efficiency helps you to save money, helps us combat climate change, and helps you to make your home more comfortable to live in. The other piece of this is people who generally across the country, or across the world, but in Rhode Island, Rhode Islanders who have a lower income actually spend more on their energy bills. So this is more as a proportion of their income. As you can see on the left there, they're spending 17% of their income versus 4% for high earners. But it's also a greater value So they're spending on average $6,000 a year on their energy, whereas higher earners, the top 20% of Rhode Islanders, are spending less than half of that. So how do we think about this issue, and how do we think about helping those who have this high energy burden? And so that's really the key of what we're talking about here today. We have three panelists who are going to share some of the work that they're doing here in Rhode Island to tackle this issue and to help all Rhode Islanders access energy efficiency resources. And so, without further ado, I'm going to jump in and introduce our first panelist. At the end, once the three panelists have spoken, we'll give a chance for people to ask questions and let them shout if they'd like to. Okay. So first, I'd like to introduce Sue Anderbois. She is a member of the Rhode Island Energy Efficiency Council, and she is representing environmental issues. She's also the majority whip in the Providence City Council, where she also serves on the Finance Committee and as chair of both the Committee on Environment and Resilience, as well as the North Main Street Task Force. She is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor in Rhode Island. She most recently was the Northeast Director of Climate and Energy for the Nature Conservancy and served as Rhode Island's first Director of Food Strategy. She lives in Providence with her husband, Scott, and their dog, Captain Ruggles, and cats, Zenny and Wasabi. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah. I can do it myself. Yay.
Yeah, and you can click me.
Yay. Awesome. Okay, I think I'm supposed to talk in here. Oh, nice. Okay, because I move around. Do I have to turn this on? Is this working?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. So excited to be with you guys today. Also, really excited to talk about energy efficiency. The no shouted comment was definitely directed at me because we all know how pumped I'm going to get. I wanted to give a brief, what is the Energy Efficiency Council? So we were a sponsor of this event, and I am a member of the Energy Efficiency Council, and when I tell people that, they fall asleep, and they're like, what is that? So I like to just start with, what is this? So the Energy Efficiency Council was created by something called the Least Cost Procurement Statute, which is just the name of the statute, the law in Rhode Island, the Rhode Island General Law that created the energy efficiency programs. So that was passed in 2006. And in that, it created a body called the Energy Efficiency and Resource Management Council. We just go by Energy Efficiency Council now for simplicity's sake. And the idea was to have a body of folks who were looking at these programs from a variety of different perspectives to make sure that as we were implementing energy efficiency in this state, that there were folks looking at it from a variety of perspectives. So we have 15 members who are appointed. We're all appointed by the governor and then confirmed by the Senate. And we represent a variety of different interests. So things like we have homeowners, we have renters, we have folks who represent workers, we have folks who represent different sizes of business, so small commercial, large commercial, small nonprofits, large nonprofits, low-income housing, market rate housing. We have folks representing municipalities. We have Priscilla De La Cruz, who's the Director of Sustainability for the City of Providence, who's a rock star, also a member, and obviously on the council, and then folks who represent the environment. I represent the environment seat on the council. And what we do is, and then we also have two members of the utility who are non-voting members of the council. So Brett is also a member of the council, and we are lucky to have him. And so basically, and I won't belabor this because this is the least exciting part of energy efficiency, but just so you know, like the energy efficiency programs are like very highly scrutinized and incredibly like more than any other government program I'm familiar with. And I'm familiar with a lot of government programs, like really thoroughly monitored and really thoroughly vetted. And it's a very active group of folks. And so the goal really is to maximize cost-effective energy savings. The least cost procurement statute basically says that we need to invest in all energy efficiency that's less than the cost of supply. So if you can invest in a little more energy efficiency instead of procuring more supply, which is natural gas or fossil gas or some other form of something you get from the sun or burn to create electricity or energy, you need to invest in that energy efficiency. And yeah, two other things. So we also want to make sure that we're empowering all Rhode Islanders to receive the full benefits of energy efficiency. And that's all Rhode Island, like individuals, so homeowners, renters, market rate folks, folks in low income housing, and also businesses of all sizes. We want to make sure everybody has access to these programs and can utilize them. And I think that slide that Kevin showed before, showing like the variety of the inequality of the burden of how we pay for energy in this state and who's paying for energy at different levels really shows like partly why we want to make sure everybody has access to it. And then energy efficiency is our most effective tool for combating climate change. Our energy use has been incredibly stable for the last 2 decades, not just here, but in a lot of New England, because we've made so many robust investments in energy efficiency, which really limits the amount of fossil gas and other fossil fuels we've needed to use to power our system. Okay, so I said that it helps with climate change. What is Act on Climate? I was told to talk about a little bit of like why energy efficiency is important for climate. So Act on Climate is our state's bedrock climate legislation. It was passed and signed into law in 2021. It took years to do. So saying 2021 makes it sound like it was like boom, boom, and then we were done. It took years to get to that point, and it requires a few things. Net zero emissions economy wide by 2050, and then there are milestones. So 80% below 1990 levels, you can see it on the screen, by 2040, and 45% by 2030. And then every 5 years separately, so 2025, 2035, 2045, there are required plans for how we're going to get there. There's a plan that will be coming out later this month from what's called the EC4, the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council, which is really just like a sub-cabinet of the governor's cabinet of folks, different cabinet directors who impact climate change. But I think the one thing I want to say is that Act on Climate, well, one of the many things, you guys, let's be real. But about Act on Climate is if we didn't just pass that and say, okay, now we're done. Like, this is good. We've passed this climate law as a state, and now bing, bang, boom, like, we've solved climate change. That set, wouldn't that be great? That set all the goals and targets and the required mandates, but we have to have a lot of additional policies and programs to actually implement that and actually remove emissions from our economy. And so energy efficiency and the least cost procurement statute have been integral for how we have achieved even the emissions reductions we've seen so far for our built environment. So it's been incredibly important. And I don't have a ton of slides about where all the carbon is in our economy because it's not the main focus, but we've seen the biggest decreases in the built environment compared to like the transportation sector or other sectors because we've made so much cost-effective investments in energy efficiency. So why do we care about energy efficiency? I love it. It is one of my favorite topics. It's where I started my career. There's a lot of things. So as Kevin already said, it's the same or better service for less energy. So it's not about the Mr. Rogers sweater and keeping your thermostat down. Which is also important. Like that's great. Conservation also thumbs up all day long. But energy efficiency is really having the exact same services. You're just using less energy. And I love that Kevin used the fridge example because fridges, back in the day before we had energy efficiency programs, like in the 60s, they used like 3 times as much energy as they use today. And you might remember that fridges back then were little and didn't really have any of the bells and whistles we have now. And they still used more energy than the big bells and whistles, like fridges that make, those huge egg-sized ice cubes that some people have. Because we've required energy efficiency all along. So we now have better appliances that use less energy. So it's really about having the same or better services than you otherwise would, though conservation also important. So that's kind of the crux of it. And then you have all these additional things along the way. So you have better grid operations. We have lower peaks. And so the most expensive time to run the grid is at those peak moments when it's summer and it's been 100 degrees for days. We're having more and more of those years. As the grid is peaking, that's when energy is the most expensive. Oh no, people are leaving. No, I'm just kidding, but I'm just teasing. And so having more energy efficiency reduces those peaks, reduces the number of days we're going in those areas. We're also seeing individual savings for residential and commercial customers. When we did energy efficiency in our home, we live in a really old house. They'd never done anything. When we moved in, we did a whole bunch of stuff and we started saving about a third of the utility bills, which was a lot. And so you can really see some really amazing savings. And then you lower your carbon emissions, which for me is a really huge deal. And even as we're building out the grid of the future and our clean energy resources, and we should build as much as we can of that, it's going to make that transition more cost effective as well, because the more energy efficient we are, the fewer new resources we're going to need to build, and the fewer land use conflicts we're going to have. It just makes everything better. Oh, wait. Wow. That's such a good slide, Kate. Kate made the slide. Um, um, and they have all sorts of other benefits. So energy efficiency in the economy, the Efficiency Council puts out an annual report, and they're available on our website, which is eec.ri.gov. And there's some really great additional information there about some of the other benefits that energy efficiency provides. So in 2024, the programs resulted in $448 million in total benefits to Rhode Islanders, which is huge. And since 2009, which is close to the beginning of the programs, it's created over $6 billion in benefits. And so every dollar we've invested in the last almost 20 years has resulted in $3 back to our economy. And then this is also really important. It employs a lot of people, and these are not jobs that can be replaced by AI. These are not jobs that can be replaced by someone somewhere else. Like, these are people coming into your home, replacing your appliances, putting in insulation, putting in new lighting. Like, these are Rhode Islanders or Massachusetts residents, but these are local folks doing jobs in our communities, being paid well. And so it's supporting real jobs here every day, which is really important. And then a lot of folks ask, well, like, once we achieve the Act on Climate mandates and we have 100% renewable energy on the grid, like, why do we care about energy efficiency? Let's just stop caring about it. And so I have four little points about that. One is that's not the world we live in right now. And so that'll be a great day when we get there, hopefully sooner rather than later. A lot of us are working really hard to get us to that point. The world we live in now is our regional grid is still more than 50% natural gas. And most of our homes are still heated with gas or oil. So our electric grid is still predominantly fossil fuel based, and our heating and cooling are still predominantly fossil fuel based. So that'll be a great world once we get there. We are not there now. So it's a really great thought exercise to think about, what will we do when we're already there? That is a really great problem for future us to think about. Current us, though, needs to really think about how are we going to build out that renewable energy grid and do it in the most cost-effective and land-effective way, or land-efficient way. And energy efficiency is going to be key for all of that. If we aren't energy efficient, the amount we're going to need to build out is more. The amount of transmission we're going to need to build out is more. We're going to see a lot more land use conflicts. It's just going to be a more expensive build out as opposed to a really efficient and low-cost build out. There's tons of information on all of this, but I'm not going to whatever. We'll also have more efficient grid operations. We already talked about peak reduction, more efficient transmission and distribution. And even with a world powered by renewables, we'll still see bill savings. It'll still be important for customers to see savings on their bills. And so even though it'll be no carbon, all the great things, customers still will need to see those savings. There's no use paying extra for something you don't need to. And that is where I'm going to end and pass it on to the amazing Angela. Do you want to introduce her, or can I say nice things about her? Okay, I am going to introduce Angela, who I've known for many years. Angela is the supervisor of low and moderate income assistance at Rhode Island Energy. She is a huge energy efficiency geek and has been I love that that's in your bio, because it's so true, and has been designing, evaluating, reporting, and delivering energy efficiency products and services for 20 plus years. She started when she was 10. Her long tenure means she was there when compact fluorescent light bulbs were first introduced to customers, through the transition to LED bulbs, and now, having transformed the market, no longer offers incentives on residential lighting. You can often find her talking to customers at customer assistance expos, the Rhode Island Home Show, or Landlord outreach sessions. Angela.
So, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk. At Rhode Island Energy, we get to go into around 12,000 homes each year and delivering energy efficiency to our customers. And the reason we're there is we're really evaluating those homes to see if there's a potential to weatherize them. And what I mean by weatherization is we want to put insulation in the walls, the attic, the basement to really insulate your home. And then we're also sealing up any leaky areas. So your conditioned air, the heat during the winter doesn't escape out to the cold, or cooler air during the summer doesn't move outside. And what have we learned from doing this work over the past 30 years? We know that Rhode Island housing stock is really old, like really old. 2023 Rhode Island Foundation study showed that Rhode Island has the third oldest homes within the nation, and within New England, it has the largest percentage of homes built before 1940, and the second largest built before 1980. And why do I bring that up? It's basically because we need help to be successful in energy efficiency. Before we can actually go out and do all of our work in insulating your home, we actually need to make sure that the home is safe and healthy for the residents so we don't make things worse by tightening up your home. So, what we see on average is out of those 12,000 homes, 55% of them have some kind of issue that prevents us from continuing with weatherization. So, those need to be addressed currently by the homeowner before we can proceed. So, the first slide is our market rate homes. We're finding 50% of the homes in Rhode Island have knob and tube wiring. And that is a serious bummer because knob and tube wiring is really expensive to remove, like $10,000 plus. So that will stop us from doing our work because if you have it, we can't really blow in insulation and have it next to your knob and tube wiring because it becomes a fire hazard. So that prevents us from doing work. The second most frequent issue we see is carbon monoxide coming off of your heating system. Depending on what's triggering that, that can actually be a quick and easy fix. You might just need to clean and tune your heating system. So that one we kind of like. Mold. Mold is tricky. Some people are really sensitive to mold. It's hard to locate. It's expensive to remediate or not. Depends on the homeowner. The other chart brings us to what we're seeing in the income eligible homes, and those have your mechanical, electrical, plumbing issues. There's just a lot of things that need to be addressed before we can go in and do our work. There's also moisture problems, mold. There might be debris that needs to be removed from the attic before we can go in there, and sometimes there are some of our animal friends. So all of those things for us are stop work orders and need to make safe for the homes. So what can we do about it? This is where energy efficiency needs to really partner well with other organizations. And fortunately for us in Rhode Island, this has been of top interest for Rhode Island. There's a lot going on. So on November 13th, the governor and the Rhode Island Department of Housing Secretary, Deborah Goddard, they announced a $6 million home repair program. And I just checked on it on Monday when I was pulling together these slides. And there's already a pause in accepting applications as they work through what they received so far. And to me, that's really exciting because it really shows that people really want to get their homes fixed and they're really looking for some assistance to get that work done. So hopefully, we'll hear a lot of voices from community members about really the need to do step one because we can't be successful in the energy efficiency side until we get those homes really healthy and safe for their homeowners. There is also a legislative commission going on right now that's investigating, and they're going to provide recommendations on the creation of a statewide whole home repair program. So I think those recommendations are due in January or early 2026. So I'm hoping that's another pathway for us. And it's great that these services are out there. But it also means that for organizations working with the customer, they have a limited time, they have limited funding, um, and they have a lot of competing needs. We really need to work well with each other to really make it as easy for the customer as possible. And I have a couple of examples. So, Rhode Island Energy has been working with Rhode Island Housing. So, when they go in and do a lead assessment, they'll let us know ahead of time and we'll send an energy specialist with them so they can actually do kind of a 2-for-1 within the customer's home and they don't have to have separate visits. And we've also been working with Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, who has some money from, I believe, Reggie funding and some grants. And when our CAPs, who work with income eligible customers, evaluate the potential for weatherization in income eligible homes and they find some of the issues I covered earlier, they'll actually help the customer move over to green and healthy home and actually begin the work to overcome some of the health issues. And when all that work is completed, they'll send the customer back to the CAP to continue with weatherization. So I think the more we can really coordinate and do that behind the scenes for the customer, the more successful we'll all be. And furthermore, I, our company or its parent company has been doing energy efficiency in Rhode Island for over 30 years. And when we started, we were kind of the bulk of the funding in the state. But today, the Office of Energy Resources has been really successful in bringing in both federal and state funding to really offer incentives to customers for efficient electric heating, appliances, and upgrades to electrical panels. A lot of that's targeted to low and moderate income customers. But the reason I bring it up is I think it's really important to see that that funding doesn't always have to be on the customer's bill through the energy efficiency charge. It can come from other areas, and we can still serve our customers successfully. Um, so we know about the homes, we know about the need for making our homes healthy and safe, but none of us would have any work to do if customers aren't interested in really getting weatherization, if they don't feel the benefits are worth the investment of their time and energy and funds. So we have done research on who participates in our programs and what populations tend not to participate. And one that was identified is kind of the landlord renter population. So in 2025, Rhode Island Energy did more or less a deep dive on landlords. We started out with an assessment in Central Falls and we partnered with the mayor and Progressive Latino and really did a mailing under the cover of the mayor to encourage landlords to come to information session. It was in both Spanish and English, and the great, robust response we got from that really encouraged us to take it a step further. So in 2025, we worked with the Providence Public Library. Alina Bravo, the lead of that effort, is here tonight. She's been doing a great job. And we've been doing these sessions monthly in different communities, both in English and Spanish. And it has really been eye-opening and a privilege to talk to all these landlords and really see how hard they're working to really provide a safe home for their tenants. And it's not easy, right? We all have a lot of things on the top of mind, and to go on this journey, it can be major construction on your home. It takes a lot of effort. So we appreciate them and we value their input. And we've been really fortunate because there's a picture of our Pawtucket outreach. At that one, we had a couple of landlords that were also contractors. And when we were explaining the landlord incentive, which essentially is weatherization for free for the 1 to 4 units, they really got the economics of it. They were really thrilled and said they were going to spread the word to their peers who are both contractors and landlords. So we love that. We love the word of mouth. Um, and we will hopefully be continuing that. Oh, the little chart on the bottom kind of shows, it's not statistical or anything, but it shows the blue lines are 24 and the lighter blue lines are 2025. And it shows that we've almost doubled the participation of renters and landlords in 2025. So preliminary results are pretty good. Um, so I just wanted to thank, quickly our community action agencies, which I feel like really do a wonderful job of braiding different funding. I mean, they give these services to customers that come in asking for some assistance, and the customer doesn't even realize whether the money came from federal funds or state funds or from energy efficiency, and it really shouldn't matter as long as we can help them. So I know the agencies are underfunded and there's a lot of criticism sometimes, but they really, I believe, have their hearts in the right place. The Providence Public Library and all of our municipal town libraries and governments were essential in this work, and our energy efficiency lead vendors who are out there day after day serving Rhode Islanders with energy efficiency. And finally, I just want to thank my energy efficiency program managers that work hard. So, yeah. Another critical part of this landlord outreach was also our equity working group that is in its 6th year of existence. It's a panel of community members and advocates that really provide us some good insights and feedback on what we're doing to really engage with customers. The last little bit I will leave is that in terms of serving income eligible customers in the state, we are actually serving 3 times as many income eligible customers in terms of the population that we have as compared to market rate customers. So, one step to really getting them on that energy efficiency journey. And I will be around after if people would like to sign up for home energy assessment. And now I feel like no introduction is required, but I have the honor of introducing Kate Hardesty. She is the program designer, administrator, and educator for URI Cooperative Extension, guiding cross-sector efforts that tackle pressing issues in energy, food, land management, and environmental literacy. Her work centers on blending scientific expertise with real-world perspectives to empower communities and individuals to build resilience through informed choices. She lives in West Greenwich and loves spending her free time hiking in the woods, swimming in the ocean, and growing vegetables and native plants at home. So.
Thank you very much, Angela. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out in the middle or the beginning, or it's not even winter yet. Thank you for coming out. Those of you who I'm looking at, it's wonderful to see you here. Some old friends and new friends. So I work with Kevin for Cooperative Extension, who you heard from earlier, and I've long been a fan of many of the folks who work in this energy efficiency space. And honestly, my training and expertise is actually in landscape management, not in anything having to do with energy. And so it's been a really humbling experience to learn just how complex our energy system is, first of all, and be part of a group of people who are training the next generation of energy professionals through our Energy Fellows program. In 2025, we continued some work we've been doing for the Energy Efficiency Council that Sue talked about. And one of the things that has been written about many times in various reports is the issue of trust. When people hear that a program is free, which is how we were talking about a lot of these energy efficiency programs, a lot of people would say, well, how can that really be true? And so, I'm breaking this down with limited time, but we kind of formed a community of practice that was made up of community members and people who work as community-based workers to inform the current programs that exist and maybe even come up with some ways to improve them. So I'm going to talk about that wonderful journey we led, and here are the people that helped us do it. So, again, the Energy Efficiency Council empowered us to convene a group of people who don't have expertise in energy. They have expertise in living. And many of them have expertise in living without a lot. And it's very interesting to bring people in a room who have different life experiences, speak different languages, have different perceptions of things, and kind of ask them the same question. And so all of these folks that you see in this image here were, are, I guess Kevin and I would say, card-carrying members of the EHOCOP. We even had a chant. But these folks showed up at least 3 of the 6 times we met and gave, opened their hearts and minds to us when we were asking questions like, if a home energy assessment is as no cost to you, why haven't you done it? Or if we call for you, will you let the assessor into your home? Or, and lots of questions around this. Because I will say, having studied programs around the United States, Rhode Island has got it going on. I mean, we really have programs that are meant to level the playing field for everyone. But the problem is people aren't taking advantage of them, and people who need them the most aren't taking advantage of them. So this was an effort to kind of lift up the voices of the folks who are underserved and underengaged and see if we couldn't come up with some solutions. So there's a lot of words on this slide, and I encourage you all to read as I'm talking, but really, we kind of had a light bulb moment in extension where I work. We lean a lot on this notion of a train the trainer model, which is that there's only going to be, one Kate, thank God. And I can only interact with so many people at a time. But if I teach one to fish, they can fish for themselves. They can take the information I share and then teach others with it. And so this train the trainer model we applied to this group of people I'm talking about who are in that first picture, because many of them work in the community. They have relationships with people in the community. They're trusted by people in the community. So we thought to ourselves, and this is basically what this logic model says, if we invest in the folks who already have established relationships with people around, communities in Rhode Island, they will spread the word on our behalf, because there's no way Rhode Island Energy and the EEC and URI and, all the people that work in this space can ever reach how many, especially income eligible customers we have. So we were kind of testing out this notion of investing in a particular group who already has a lot of face time and trust in the community. Does that make sense to everyone I'm looking into the eyes of right now? Okay, great. So, and this notion and where we're hoping to go is that if we continue to train people who are already trusted as sources of solid information, and if we work through the entities that we asked our friends in this photo, one of the questions we asked was, where do you get information you trust? So we heard libraries, Lena, we heard universities, we heard, community-based organizations. Angela mentioned Progresso Latino. And so this group helped us come up with a list of 461 organizations in Rhode Island that they trust for information. So now we have a list of places to work through in addition to working through individuals we train. So this was basically the gist of it. Every time we got together, we learned a little something. We had these little literacy learns. So we talked about the difference between conservation and efficiency, made sure everyone understood that. We talked about what an assessment is, what kinds of things happen when you have one done in your home, who might come and do it, their background, just to kind of demystify and break down some of the assumptions people have. And a little bit about who was in that picture and others that participated. As I said, the majority of the participants were either residents, and that could be a homeowner or a renter, and then also community-based workers. Some of them are community health workers who may work in a primary care physician's office. Some of them might work at a CAP agency, community action agency, of which we have 7 in Rhode Island. They do phenomenal work with very few resources. Others were just community advocates who wanted to learn this new thing they could talk about. And so the other really cool thing, and something I'm very proud of, is that this was the first time we offered an energy program, or any program I've been involved in my 20 years here. I also started when I was 10, in Spanish. It's completely in another language other than English. And so that really has, I credit the Energy Efficiency Council for pushing us, because now we know we can do this for everything we do. We don't need to just do things in English, but I'm getting on a tangent. So now I'm going to get a little academic. So we know in Rhode Island, having studied this issue for a couple of years now, that Rhode Island has really, really strong policies and programs. We have, the utility company who's administering energy efficiency programs. As Sue said, they're highly scrutinized. And resources flow, the ones that are available, and things work fairly well. So on the structural side of things, we're in pretty good shape. And I think I would say over the past few years, we've started as a state to invest more in relationships. So Angela was talking about, the image she showed of all those bubbles. Those are all organizations or programs that are working together to make this stuff happen. It's not happening in a vacuum. But that's kind of at a higher level, organizational level. One of the things we know to be true is that when you have trust embedded in a program or a project or an effort, it's going to go further. And so we really have encouraged, our colleagues in this space to think more about investing in relational change. So, and I'll talk more about what that is, because ultimately what I would love to see, and this is kind of, the dream of the work, is that when anyone, whether it's a Rhode Island housing person who's going in for lead abatement, or a community health worker going into someone's home because they've just had an infant, they have a baby and they're doing a prenatal checkup. There's all sorts of reasons why community-based workers go in people's homes. But my hope is that we can train people who are already in the community working. Usually these folks are working in low-income areas or underrepresented areas, that they will kind of have in their head, if they hear someone say asthma, or they hear someone say, I get my nose is like stuffed up all the time, or, some of these things that we know have to do with airflow in a home, that they'll say, what, I think you need to have your home weatherized, because they're already there for the health and human safety of the family or the individual. But like we've talked about already, it's an opportunity to also have weatherization done, which is already paid into on our utility bills, and solve many other issues that really relate to social determinants of health. So this is dense, but we're really feeling strongly that if we can bring some resources together to train people, that'll be a really good thing. So I think I got ahead of myself, but in academia, we like to think about things in terms of models, and so we see this as a structural. There's a structural element to these energy efficiency programs. There's a relational element. We want to move into the transformational space where people face fewer barriers, like the ones Angela showed on those graphs. Some people are really well intentioned. They call to have weatherization done, and then their electricity was installed in 1896, and it's not safe to do what the assessor calls for. So there are a lot of barriers, and one of the things that we talked about a lot with the community of practice group was, what are some fixes to the way things already work that would improve participation in programs. And we heard a lot about, somebody said, I don't speak English. And I called to make an appointment, and the person who answered the phone could not communicate with me. And I got frustrated and said, thanks anyway. Or, their knob and tube wiring was too costly for them to replace. They called one number, and whoever answered the phone said you called the wrong number and didn't give them the other number. All of these very detailed things. What I observed was that sometimes when people hit even minor speed bumps, it just takes the wind right out of their sails and they stop trying to do what they set out to do. And so that's really one of the biggest challenges here. And as I think about this, Kevin and I sit in rooms together and we're like, what are we going to tell people about how to fix this? And I think it comes down to human connection, which is expensive. And so that's one of the reasons the train the trainer model might be effective. We can teach 5 people to then teach 30 people instead of, doing one-on-one kind of investments. So another bit of, insight that came out of this beautiful EHA COP group of ours is that, having authentic partnerships, having people you trust is really important. And, we know that these entities and individuals already exist all over Rhode Island. So instead of doing the typical, 21st century academic thing of walking into a room and saying, I'm from the university, I know everything. We're approaching this from, oh, you have lived experience. Why don't you help us understand how to make this easier for you? And so we're doing a lot of active listening and honoring relationships that already exist that we might not be part of, and that's okay. Does anybody? Oh, Kevin, you took some of my slides out. Did you? No? Oh, did I hit the wrong button? Oh, weird. Well, that's okay. Yeah, so we're moving forward. We're hoping to continue doing this work and maybe, work on a pilot program with community-based workers who are part of the Community Health Worker Association of Rhode Island. There's a lot of groups that already exist that convene folks who do the exact work that we'd like to kind of train them to broaden their bandwidth and kind of repertoire, if you will, help them upskill, learn more about energy efficiency, and just have it be part of the services they offer when they interact with people. So I think that's all I have for now, and I'll hand it back to Kevin, who didn't delete my slides. Oh, okay, yeah.
Awesome. Hello. Okay.
Yeah, 2 mics.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists. Now we're going to offer a chance for anyone in the audience to ask questions. Again, for those of you who are joining us online, if you look down in the description under the YouTube video, you'll see a link where you can submit questions if you have any. But anyone here in the audience have any questions for the panelists? Mm-hmm. We'll start over here and then we'll come back.
Well, I just loved hearing all 3 perspectives, and what did they say? A great tide lifts all boats. So I feel like the 3 of you all work together, and just it's a beautiful thing to behold. With tiny Rhode Island and hearing all about all of this energy efficiency, I couldn't help stop thinking about just the changes at a federal level. In fact, there is no more EERE, energy efficiency and renewable energy, at the U.S. Department of Energy level. So what are your perspectives? I'm particularly interested in Sue, just, but on how Rhode Islanders as individuals and how you all and all your programs can kind of face these headwinds.
Yeah.
That's such a good question, Wendy. And it is, I mean, it's a huge challenge that we're seeing these programs disappear at the federal level because three things. One is under the Biden administration, we saw Biden was the best climate president of my lifetime. I'm 42. And we saw all these new programs come into play to help us move forward on climate and or on addressing climate. And the state actually did a really great job applying for those programs, trying to get money in the state, and then so many of those contracts have been canceled. And so much of that money is no longer flowing. And then programs that have existed for a long time, like the ERE office, which is not new, that's been there, also gone. That's devastating. Like, there's no other way for me to say that. Like, I just need to be real about it. And so I think that is a real imperative on the state and on local municipalities. So, in my other life, I'm a Providence State Council member to really continue to step up. And I think Angela had a good point. It's not all about things that go on the bill. So there's lots of other ways to invest in energy efficiency. The utility programs are really important. And also there are other things we can and should be doing. And so I think it's imperative for us, especially because we do have both legislatively binding climate mandates we need to meet, but also like scientifically binding climate mandates we need to meet. A lot of folks have said, "Oh, should we push back those dates that for the climate mandate? Should we be thinking further into the future?" And it would be so great if we had more time. That would be such a wonderful luxury. And I liken it to someone else used this metaphor, and I thought it was really great. If you're pregnant, that baby is coming in 9 months, and climate change is coming, whether we'd like it or not. And maybe we didn't build the nursery yet. Doesn't matter. Like it is coming, and it is here. And so, it would be great if we had more time. We don't. So. I would love to be more specific, but I think that's something I would love to see us as a state be thinking more holistically about how we reach our clean energy goals, our climate goals, and our energy affordability goals. I think we really can walk and chew gum at the same time, and I think sometimes we have trouble with that, but we really can if we all work together and like think about what our creative solutions are and what the grid of the future really looks like. What are we investing in? What pipes and wires are we actually investing in, and what are the best uses of our resources? So I'll say that, but I'm happy to talk more about it. But it's a huge problem, but also a really big opportunity, because investing in energy efficiency and our clean energy future is actually going to be like the cheapest, best way to get not only the future of our energy system, but also will make our air, water, and all of our systems cleaner. So it is the win-win. It's just like, how do we get there, given that these are huge setbacks. That we are experiencing huge setbacks, and just to be realistic about that. Did Angela or Kate, did you want to add anything?
I just think the challenge with all of that is always to make sure that people don't get left behind.
Yes. Yep.
Let's see, I don't know where to start because I have so many questions. But I'll start in a very specific. So I've been working with Citizens Climate Lobby, and we do things like work with legislators and go and testify for bills that are presented and in the legislature. How do I say this? So one bill that we tried to support would deal with building efficiency, and it was called the Building Decarbonization Act. And, lots of sense to that, to save people money in the end if they invest in that. And yet I did look at who testified against that in, for instance, the Rhode Island Housing Department testified against it because they said, well, if we do that, the costs are going to be passed right down to the people who rent from those buildings. So that's a very specific tangle of things. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a few things. One is, so we passed a similar piece of legislation at the city level in 2023 as kind of a proof that this could be done. And it includes two things. So the city version includes just the first part, and then the idea was, let's do the first part and then we can build in the second part of the building decarb law. And the first is just benchmarking. It's just saying, hey, what is going on in these buildings, how much energy you're using, and then publicly disclosing that. that took quite a bit of effort to get past, even at that level. And part of that was figuring out how to make sure it's as easy as possible for the businesses, because it was only for the largest of the buildings. So it was municipally owned buildings and then buildings above like 20,000 square feet. I should remember this because I wrote this bill, but I think it's 20,000 square feet. So only the biggest buildings, and it starts with the biggest of the biggest and then kind of works its way down. Well, it starts with municipal buildings because we should always go first, and then it works its way down. And part of the challenge actually was we had it, and by we I mean the city. I did not do this myself. I will give all of the credit to David Ruggiero, who's the city's energy administrator, and Leah Bamberger, our former director of sustainability, who really worked on this early on. Had worked with then National Grid on like what that process would look like, and they had done this in Cambridge, and they had done it in Boston, and then we switched utilities, and this is not a ding on Rhode Island Energy, it was just all new systems. And so it was kind of starting over of like, what is this going to look like? So people were pushing back, like, you said it was going to be easy, how are we going to do this? And so it took a little while to get that legislation passed at the city level. I'll share, this is a silly thing, but it's actually one of the reasons I ran for council, because I was so frustrated that the last council could not pass building benchmarking, and it seemed so basic. It's like, we're just talking about reporting energy use. We're not even requiring reductions yet. Like, what is going on? And then we passed it unanimously, the October 2023. So because it is like very foundational, and what we were saying was, we need to know what's going on, because there are actually all these programs and other things that once we know what's going on in the buildings, we can better use these programs to target the folks for reductions. The state law that was introduced also includes like mandatory reductions, which is a really great next step of like, okay, now that we know what we got to get down to zero. And I think the version that ended up getting introduced this past year kept it vague of like how it would get down. But I think the concern that I heard was, the city pushed back against this, and it was actually great. I did this really amazing housing forum with Speaker Shikarchi in my neighborhood, which is Ward 3 of the city of Providence. Great ward. And we did a really great housing forum together. And someone in the audience asked about this. I think it was actually another CCL member. Was like, "What's up with benchmarking?" And I was like, "Oh, fun fact. We already did that, and it was not expensive for the city to do. And we have most of the largest buildings, and we had already David, and by we I really mean David and Priscilla at this point, had kind of led the way of like figuring out the process with the utility. So it wasn't going to be. Sorry, I'm like really going on this, but I'm super excited about building benchmarking. I'm really sorry. They had already kind of cleared the path so other cities and towns would be able to just participate. But the information we were hearing from the State House was that cities and towns were concerned that it was going to be too expensive to participate. And we're like, we tried to dispel that myth. It did pass the House. I was really glad. So we did this housing forum with the speaker, and he heard us say that and followed up afterward. Be like, how much did it cost? Like, we met with Priscilla. We like really dug in. I really appreciated that. It did pass the House, but there was some persistent messaging that it was going to be too expensive for businesses and for the municipalities, and we just could not. Because there is a cost. Like, you do have to get some systems set up. The city has like a portion of a person, but there are supports in place and things we could have done. So it was frustrating to see that not pass. I'm hoping it'll pass this year. I hope it gets reintroduced. But
So that was one of my main questions. Should we?
Yeah, you should totally try again.
Working on that.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't a big mistake in some way.
No, please. And like, I can share whatever data we have at the city level about how it's been implemented at the city. So, like, I think you have my contact info, but I can get it to you afterwards.
Thank you. Are we okay with one more question?
Sure.
We have a student question, so
Woo. Sorry, that was a really long answer. I got so excited about that.
Hello, I'm from Connecticut, and in Connecticut, Eversource does a very similar program with weatherization of homes, and my home was weatherized, and hearing about a lot of the problems that cause deferral of weatherization, I wanted to ask, is there any programs in place to, mitigate the costs of, solving these mold problems, these old wiring problems? Is there any, assistance for these residents in order so that they can, therefore, weatherize their homes? Is that a thing that is in place?
There are different assistances in place. Some towns have grants or give you a tax break if you're upgrading certain systems within your home. The energy efficiency programs actually let you use a 0% loan up to a certain amount to take care of nub tube wiring. And there's these home repair programs that are rolling out throughout the state. So I think that's going to be great. And Green and Healthy Homes Initiative has some funding too.
Oh yeah. I'll also add, as thinking about legislation, that's a great place to also advocate for more funding, because what we're seeing on the Energy Efficiency Council, and Angela talked about this in her presentation, is like we can't reach or the utility can't reach some of the customers because of this. And that $6 million that the housing department put out, I actually looked over the weekend because I wanted to put it. I do a little newsletter for my constituents, and I wanted them to know about it because it's a huge issue. We have such old housing in Providence, and it was already on a wait list by this weekend, and I think they announced it like right before Thanksgiving. So we need more funding for that kind of thing because we're not fully spending all the energy efficiency funding we could. It's like, and it's so impactful for folks' lives. So anyway, good thing to be advocating for in the budget.
Speaking of advocating, so I guess this is my opportunity to say, our work here in Extension at the Land Grant Institution is make sure that everyone has access to this great information and our partners and information from them. Knowledge is power, but we are only as strong as our voices. So, it's really important when folks learn things and see inequities that we speak up. And so, and that's really how change happens. So, and it's been an inspiring year, as I said, when I first started speaking, starting to work more closely with a lot of the people in this room, with Sue and Angela and their colleagues, because there are a lot of very well-meaning people, and they're the ones we should be listening to, right? And those of us who can speak up for those who can't should do that too. So there's your academic saying that. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. We'll call it here for these questions, but I know other people had their hands raised. Please feel free to try to snag one of the panelists after and ask your questions over some more snacks and refreshments, please, because we've got a bunch in the back. Feel free to fill your pockets as you leave. So thank you so much. Really exciting to hear about the opportunities and the path that we see forward. Thinking about collaborating, engaging the community in new ways. How do we achieve that transformational change that Kate was talking about? So want to thank you all for coming tonight. For those of you who tuned in online, as I mentioned before, the lecture was live streamed but also recorded, so feel free to share, or if you want to go back and listen to their lecture over again every night before you go to bed, you can do that. And if you are interested in getting some more educational materials about Rhode Island home energy assessments or other energy efficiency topics, feel free to reach out to us at the Cooperative Extension. The email is at the bottom there, and so you could, if you want to find this later, you can go to YouTube and scroll to the end. Thank you so much. One more round of applause, please, for our panelists. Have a great night.